ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for watching the show. This is your Top Think Tanks review, and I'm your host, Bryce Dolan. Now, today on the show, we're going to look at 5 different top 50 United States think tanks and look at the top stories from each one of their websites. To begin the show, the Brookings Institution explains why Trump won and how voters want change, but not his ideology. For those who, like me, worry about Trump's dark, quasi-authoritarian brand of populism and his apparent contempt for constitutionally ordered government, the polls offer a hint of solace, at least about the public, if not necessarily about the president-elect. This election was a Hail Mary pass for change, not an ideological statement or an endorsement of Trump's dark vision. Let me explain, ladies and gentlemen. Trump's base didn't win it for him. Trump did rally Republican partisans and locked up whites without college degrees, but there weren't enough of those to win the race. Republicans and non-college whites each made up only about a third of the electorate, and there's considerable overlap between those two groups. Trump won because independents broke late for him. Independents made up about a third of the electorate, and Trump won them by 6 points. He won late deciding voters by 5 points, whereas among early deciders, Clinton narrowly won. Independents chose change over qualifications. That is, they understood that Clinton is better equipped to be president, but they cared more about change and decided Trump is an acceptable risk. 52% said Clinton is qualified to be president, versus only 38% for Trump. On temperament to be president, Clinton beat Trump by a whopping 20 points, but qualifications and temperament weren't what voters most wanted. 39% said can bring change is the most important candidate quality, far ahead of right experience or good judgment. Change voters want better outcomes. They decided change Trump's qualifications, pun unintended, because they believe the economy is rotten and the country is going in the wrong direction, and they didn't think more of the same would fix either problem. Voters thought the economy's condition is not good or poor by a margin of almost 2 to 1. The same is true for countries being on the wrong versus right track. The email scandal proved fatal to Clinton because it neutralized corruption and character issues that could have tipped the scales against Trump. With corruption off of the table, voters were free to weigh change versus experience, the calculus which proved decisive for Trump. The two candidates effectively tied on whether they're honest and trustworthy. 61% said Clinton isn't, and 63% said Trump isn't. Similarly, 63% are bothered by Clinton's use of private email. Not far behind, there's 70% bothered by Trump's treatment of women. Thus, this was not an election based on ideology. It was not an endorsement of Trump's dark vision or authoritarian tendencies, and certainly not of Trump's character. Rather, it was a Hail Mary pass for change, a call to shake things up and produce better outcomes. The implication is just as Trump implied in his victory speech when he said, "We have to do a great job. He'd better perform, and soon." So, ladies and gentlemen, this was an article from the Brookings Institution, kind of a message to people out there who were surprised or upset or afraid about these election results. People who are saying, oh, you voted for a sexist, you voted for a racist. The majority of people didn't vote for that, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, there are some people who voted for Trump because they think he's going to build a wall. Yes, they voted for Trump because he's not a woman. Yes, they voted for Trump because he's white. But a large number of voters chose Trump over Clinton because they didn't want another politician in Washington. They wanted somebody different. They didn't vote for a sexist. They didn't vote for a racist. They didn't vote for the wall to be built. They vote for change in the White House. They voted for change in the political system, and hopefully the gamble we are taking with the candidate that nobody agrees with other than the fact that he's going to change stuff, hopefully he can make some change happen. So again, ladies and gentlemen, remember, the majority of people didn't vote for Trump because of his ideology. They voted for Trump because they wanted change in the White House. because the economy and the direction of this country has been going down and going nowhere but down for the last couple years. So even though we don't like Trump, he's maybe what we need in the White House to shake things up. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that is our last article on the Trump train. For the rest of this episode, we're going to stay off of the Trump topic, but however, our next article is still on the election topic. Next, Human Rights Watch says the United States is turning the corner on marijuana use. Voters in 3 states approved ballot measures on November 8th to legalize the use and possession of small amounts of marijuana, part of a continued shift in the United States drug policy. In addition, Oklahoma voted to reduce its criminal penalties for drug offenses by making possession a misdemeanor instead of a felony. Personal drug use shouldn't be addressed by the criminal justice system, and the results on Election Day helped move things in the right direction, said Antonio Ganada, U.S. Advocacy Director at Human Rights Watch. The U.S. continues to move away from criminalizing marijuana use and toward rational drug policy grounded in a respect for privacy and human rights. The state ballot measures are similar. They apply only to people aged 21 and older. Use by someone under 21 is still prohibited. People are allowed to possess up to 1 ounce, 28.5 grams of marijuana, and grow up to 6 plants for private use. Massachusetts allows people to keep up to 10 ounces in their home. People may transfer marijuana to other adults so long as the transfer is not a sale. California and Massachusetts also give local governments the authority to license establishments where marijuana can be used on site. U.S. enforcement of drug possession laws ruins individual and family lives, discriminates against people of color, and undermines public health. A recent report by Human Rights Watch and the ACLU shows that police make more arrests for drug possession than for any other crime. The long-term consequences can separate families, exclude people from job opportunities, welfare assistance, public housing, and voting, and expose them to discrimination and stigma for a lifetime. So ladies and gentlemen, on this topic of marijuana legalization, you can't look at it as, oh, people are like, legalize it, man, because they want to use it. You can't look at it like that. You got to look at the implications of legalizing marijuana around just the recreational use of it. By having it as a criminal offense, not only people that have marijuana that get a felony charge, they can't vote anymore, they can't buy a house, they can't, if they need welfare, they can't receive it, they can't apply for public housing, all because somebody was smoking a joint or had a little bit of marijuana on them. You essentially ruined their entire lives with a felony charge. So ladies and gentlemen, when you talk about the legalization of marijuana, don't try to look at it as, oh, people just want to legalize it so they can use it. Well, of course that's why people want to legalize it, so they can use it. But it's also, there's other reasons to help out the criminal justice system. Maybe if we didn't criminalize marijuana, the prisons wouldn't be so overcrowded, or ruin people's life with a lifetime stigma or discrimination with a possession charge. Also, besides the criminal implications, you got to look at the economical benefits from legalizing this plant. Colorado has so much money, they don't even know what to do with it right now. So with the state of our economy and the state of our national debt, looking into the business side of marijuana wouldn't be a bad deal for the economy of the United States. So we're headed in the right direction according to Human Rights Watch and the most recent U.S. election. So I'm guessing the U.S. will keep moving in the right direction. And again, ladies and gentlemen, when you hear people argue about this, try not to get stuck on the idea that they just want it legalized so they can use it. There are definitely some other implications of why people want it legalized. Now, next we have an update in Colombia from the Council on Foreign Relations. In an earlier segment, we touched on the president of Colombia, Juan Manuel Santos, as he came to a peace agreement with the FARC, the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, and he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for ending the over 50-year-long fight between the two groups. However, President Santos announced that he would present a revised peace agreement with the FARC directly to Congress for ratification after voters narrowly rejected an earlier agreement in an October referendum. Citizens rejected earlier peace deal because they wanted war crimes to be punished. Now, a majority of the Congress, supports President Santos, and the High Court ruled that he will not have to seek voters' approval. Government and rebel negotiators in Havana announced the New Deal, saying it took into account proposals from the most diverse sectors of society. The new agreement was praised by diplomats from the United States, the European Union, and Union of South American Nations. So, the president of Colombia tried to come out with a peace agreement for the FARC earlier this year, and the majority of voters turned it down by a slight majority, only because that majority wanted to see punishment and consequences for those people who were involved in this half-century long conflict. The other half of the people that lost slightly by the minority want just peace and want this to be over with, and that's what the president wants too. So Congress approves it, and another number of other diplomats from the United States, European Union, and Union of South American Nations, they also approve the peace agreement. So don't let the people vote on it. It's for the better of the country and the people, so this peace agreement gets approved. So great news for Colombia there and the Colombian president. Now, next, to give you entrepreneurs and self-promoters some help, the Pew Research Center has an update on social media use. Over the past decade, Pew Research Center has documented the wide variety of ways in which Americans use social media to seek out information and interact with each other. A majority of Americans now say they get news via social media, and half of the public has turned to these sites to learn about the 2016 presidential election. Americans are using social media in the context of work, whether to take a mental break on the job or to seek out other employment, while also engaging in an ongoing effort to navigate the complex privacy issues that these sites bring to the forefront. Now, in that context, a national survey of 1,520 adults conducted on March 7th through April 4th of this year finds that Facebook continues to be America's most popular social networking platform by a substantial margin. Nearly 8 in 10 online Americans, 79%, now use Facebook, more than double the share that uses Twitter, 24%, Pinterest, 31%, Instagram, 32%, or LinkedIn, 29%. On a total population basis, accounting for Americans who do not use the internet at all, that means that 68% of all US adults are Facebook users, while 28% use Instagram, 26% use Pinterest, 25% use LinkedIn, and 21% use Twitter. Thanks in part to the growing number of older adults who are joining the site, Facebook use appears to be on the rise. The share of online adults who report using Facebook has increased by 7 percentage points compared with a Pew Research Center survey conducted at a similar point in 2015. In addition, the share of Facebook users who check in daily has increased slightly in the past year. 76% of Americans who use Facebook now report that they visit the site on a daily basis, up from 70% in 2015. So, Facebook continues to be the most popular social media website, with all of the other sites like Twitter, Pinterest, Instagram, LinkedIn, all kind of have this same amount of use, but Facebook trumps all of those other social media sites. So if you're trying to promote a business, if you're trying to promote what you're doing, or anything like that, the first social media site you need to look into is Facebook. Now, to end the show, Freedom House stays on the topic of social media and reveals some unfortunate statistics of social media use, monitoring, and suppression around the world. Now, internet freedom has declined for the 6th consecutive year, with more governments than ever before targeting social media and communication apps as a means of halting the rapid dissemination of information, particularly during anti-government protests. Now, the increased controls show the importance of social media and online communication for advancing political freedom and social justice. It is no coincidence that the tools at the center of the current crackdown have been widely used to hold governments accountable and facilitate uncensored conversations. Authorities in several countries have even resorted to shutting down all internet access at politically contentious times, solely to prevent users from disseminating information through social media and communication apps with untold social, commercial, and humanitarian consequences. So the Pew Research Center just told us in our last article of all the Americans that are on social media, and we ended the show with this article that told us that there's people who can't even use this social media because of the governments. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we touched on this in a couple earlier segments about internet shutdowns and government control on social media. Can you imagine posting a meme about Trump, or posting a meme about Obama or Biden, which are just flooding the internet right now, and getting sentenced to 2 years in prison because of a meme? Well, that happened in Turkey. A gentleman actually created a meme comparing the Turkish president, or the dictator now, comparing him to Golem, the creature in Lord of the Rings, in a meme. And that person was sentenced to a 1-year suspended sentence, and a person who just reposted the meme on Facebook got sentenced to 2 years in prison. So, as much as people hate social media here in the United States, it's a useful tool, and it's not a tool that is taken for granted everywhere in the country. People appreciate the fact that they can get on social media and share worldwide what is happening right then and there. And unfortunately, there are countries that don't allow that to happen. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that does it for the show today. If you want to look more into any of these articles, which I encourage you, especially on this episode, please read these articles in their entirety. They are very interesting. You can find the links directly to them and their respective websites below in the description. While you're doing that, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, give us a like on Facebook, or follow us on Twitter. But thank you for watching, ladies and gentlemen. That does it for your Top Think Tanks review. I was your host, Bryce Dolan.